was like, I'm not interested in anything you have to say because I'm in God's true church. And she goes, well, I'm in God's true church too. She goes, no, you're not. You're wearing makeup. You're of the devil. And she closed the door on her.
And the Mormon across the street is like, excuse me, it's me. My new favorite thing is Mormon soaking.
Women are like the root of all evil. Who believes that? Incels, connect the dots.
Patriarchy. I had never actually put it in those terms of the church conditioned us to be courteous all the fucking time.
Cheapy stuff.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Justin, if you drink 10 more of those, you might get a slight buzz.
They're the devil, but if they provide you a space for your services, everybody's money is green. So I would have to explain to the teacher I can't do it because it goes against my religion. And she would ask me, "Oh, are you Jewish?" I'm like,
yeah.
No. Like, are you a Jehovah's Witness? No. Well, what are you? I don't know.
Seventh-day Adventist?
I would just tell her, I don't know. Like, I'm 7. I don't know. What church are we in? And she would just tell me, we're in God's true church.
Oh, dear.
Welcome to the Apostate Sisters Interview Series, where we meet survivors of the worldwide Church of God. These conversations reveal the complex journeys of deconstruction, healing, and reclaiming freedom after life in a high-control religious group. Justin Joseph is the eldest of 3 siblings and spent his formative years deeply involved in the worldwide Church of God and its offshoots, including the global, living, and Philadelphia Churches of God. He ultimately broke free in 2001, rejecting the strict doctrines and racial restrictions to pursue his own path to love and liberation. Let's meet Justin. Help the sisters keep this healing content coming. Like, subscribe, and comment. Drop some dollars, or support us by becoming a channel member or patron for extra perks. So we're all here together because we all grew up in the same cult, but as it turns out, we grew up on opposite coasts in the same cult because we were out in California and you were in New Jersey, it sounds like. So can you tell us maybe like if you were born in it or how you entered the cult?
Sure. So I was born in March 7th, 1981 in Teaneck, New Jersey. I wasn't born into it. When my mother got into it, she was 3. I was 3 years old. And my youngest sister had just been born. She was born in August of 1984. And she started watching the World Tomorrow program. She started really getting into the church literature. And she ended up being baptized in 1985, right before Herbert Armstrong's death. So when we first started attending the church services, we were part of the Montvale, New Jersey congregation, which is in Bergen County. It's a Bergen County suburb. One thing that really stood out, and I don't know how common it was in other parts of the country, but in our area, there's the one thing that really stood out to me more than anything, looking back on it now, was how diverse our congregation was. We had a very large Black and Latino congregation. It was very, so it was very diverse. But yeah, and which, makes it, to me personally, I don't know, thinking back to like the rules of the church, how strict they were back then on things like interracial dating and the like, it made me kind of, as an adult looking at it through adult eyes, kind of made me wonder like why would you want to be a part of something like that?
Exactly.
Well, you mentioned that your mom had you and another one and like was kind of in that I've got toddlers phase of life. And I gotta tell you, that's not the first time we've heard that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel several times that's when families tend to have gotten involved with the church. And it may just be that it's like, it is a hard time of life. I've had kids and like, that's a hard time of life. So people are probably looking for something to connect to. Yeah.
So I'll give you a little backstory about my mother. So my mother was the middle child of 5 kids. Blue collar Jersey Italian family. My grandfather worked as a union butcher in a supermarket for many years. He had 2 boys, and then she was born. Then my aunt was born after her in 1969, and then her youngest brother was born in 1971. her two oldest brothers as adults ended up dying drug-related deaths.
Oh.
Yeah, so there was a lot of trauma there. So I can discuss this a little bit more if it's fine with you. But so when my first uncle, her first brother died in 1979, he had been at a party. He, back then, it was drugs. It was everywhere back in those days, and he shot up at a party. He OD'd. And when he started to convulse, they just, his friends freaked out because they didn't want to get in trouble with the cops or anything like that. So rather than do the right thing and call 911 or take him to a hospital, they snuck him back into his room, into his bed in the middle of the night.
Oh, no.
And my grandparents found him dead in his bed the next day.
Oh.
So,
so preventable. Oh.
Yeah. So... then in 1984, around the time my youngest sister was born, her second oldest brother, they found him dead on a New York City bus. He had OD too. So, and talking about, having the kids. So when I was born, my mother got married at 20 years old. My dad was 8 years older than her. So she got married at 20. She had me at 20. So I was born 2 months before her 21st birthday. So by the time she was 20 years old, she was already married and had a kid. And then she had my first sister, a year later. And then my third sister was born. So it was like back to back to back. So she was in her early 20s, 3 small children, in an unhappy marriage. Suffered a lot of family trauma, and needless to say, she was ripe for the picking for these people. They know who they can pick on. They always come after you at your lowest point in life.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a very hardworking man. He, for most of his life, he worked 2 jobs. Sometimes it was 3. When I was little, he was, working in supermarkets. He was also working moving furniture. He was a very blue collar guy. He had a very rough upbringing. It was a product of his upbringing. He had very abusive parents. Who he would tell me abandoned him. He abandoned him a couple of times. There were points in his life where he was homeless, and he had to work and scrap so he could rent a room, and but he was always a hustler his whole life. He was always working. He's always putting his nose to the grindstone, all that. Got drafted into the army at one point. So he spent some time in Germany. And then, when he came back, he was also a singer. He used to sing in a band. And, when you sing in a band, you also spend a lot of time in bars. And when you spend a lot of time in bars, you drink a lot in bars. So, connect the dots. I mean, it was kind of an unhealthy, he would drink a lot. And, sometimes when you drink a lot, some people have a propensity for getting violent when they drink. And, there was quite a bit of that,
Sorry,
so,
Justin.
It is what it is. I have a relationship with my dad today. I reconnected with him about, I want to say around 2017. After not seeing him for about 30 years.
That was going to be my question. I mean, you guys parted on bad terms, and then you just decided to, what made you reach out to him? I'm assuming it was you.
Yeah. So what happened was, I was living with my then girlfriend at the time. This was around 2011, and over the years, I had kind of done some half-hearted searches for him. Never was really 100% sure where he was. I knew where he lived, but I could never seem to get a hold of him. And one day I decided to send him a card. I got him a card I put my phone number in it, and I knocked on the door. There was nobody there, and I slipped it under his door. And then 6 years later, I get a phone call. So you know, yeah. So, you know, and we're close. You know, I'm at a point in my life where I don't want to like really hold too much against him anymore. You know, it's kind of like a life's too short kind of thing. And, you know, and he's, you know, helped us out a lot. I mean, we live where we live now because we needed a bigger place because we had a kid. And he actually sold his place to, you know, so we could have the money to buy this one. Like he bought our old place so we could have the money to pay for this. So, you know, he's done a lot of, he's done a lot of great stuff over.
Have you and your dad kind of like talked through a bunch of it too and like gotten into it, or just decided like, hey, it's all right, we can meet where we're at? Like,
yeah, he's kind of like my mom in the sense that he'll never admit he did anything wrong. You know, it's frustrating because, and you know, and I get it. Like, there's trauma on his end because what happened was he didn't see it coming. He came home from work one day, was sitting in front of the TV. He tells the story, and then there's a knock at the door. And he opens the door, and it's two cops. He says, "You got 10 minutes to pack up all your stuff and get out." So the way he tells the story, I don't, you know, is that my mother had that the church lawyers had helped my mother remove his name from the lease or change the terms of the lease to get him off of it. So that way, you know,
lawyers.
Yeah, that's what he says. I don't know. I mean, I take that with a grain of salt. I don't know. Okay. That's how it happened. That's just how he tells it. But I remember that day because, you know, we came home. We were spending the whole day at our grandparents'. It was a weekday. We didn't usually do that, so I was kind of wondering what was going on. And when I came home later that night, my mother sat all three of us down and told us what had happened, that he had to move out and they were getting a divorce. So
what age were you? I'm sorry. At this point?
I was 5 years old. This was in 1986.
Oh, really little. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Needless to say, it sounds like your father was not involved with Worldwide Church of God.
Not at all. No.
Okay. He was Did he have thoughts on it?
Oh yes, very much so. So when my mother first got involved, she was really trying to push it on everybody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. My dad basically was, he basically said, like, I'm working 2, sometimes 3 jobs. I have 3 mouths to feed. I'm not giving those people my money. Like, so it's like, my dad, like when he would go shopping, he would tell the story. He had 2 shopping carts full of food, diapers, formula, everything. He said he always made sure that he worked like a dog so he could feed and clothe all of us. So that was his goal. He like I said, he worked very hard his whole life up until he retired back in 2017.
So did your parents share custody then for a while?
No. So my mother had custody and he had visitation every other week. And what ended up happening was there were times where visitation would coincide with like a high holy day. So, so we would have to go to like a church service, like, I don't know, like Pentecost or some crap like that, and,
one of those dumb fucking holy days. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can drop F-bombs. Good. That's good.
Yeah, you sure can.
Yeah. You can say whatever the hell you want, Justin.
Yeah, okay. That's fan-fucking-tastic. Okay.
We'll bleep it if we have to, but be free, friend.
I just didn't want you to get like demonetized or anything.
I can bleep it.
Okay.
With all the shit that we say, Justin, you dropping some F-bombs is going to demonetize us?
Yeah. It's just, it's my instinct to kind of, and maybe that's part of like growing up in COG. You're so pre-programmed to try to be courteous, at all times, and Right.
I don't think we ever 100% break free of all those little indoctrination tidbits.
Definitely not. That's why I'm in therapy and have no self-esteem. But I digress.
Hey, we are doing the work right fucking here. That's what's happening. I want to be really clear that, like, from a broader perspective on this, like, you know, you've mentioned it, that like everyone's like dealing with where they came from too, and the trauma that they brought with them. And that is true for every person that, like, in our whatever, in our lineage that led to the life we had. And like, nobody had a choice in that. Our parents didn't either. They were dealing with their trauma in a world that had no help for that trauma and told them to just be courteous, like you said. By the way, thank you for saying that. I had never actually put it in those terms of the church conditioned us to be courteous all the fucking time. But yeah, so like, I want to be really clear that, you know, no matter what we would say of like, oh, the terrible things you went through, like, yes, but that's not to say that someone else is bad or evil at all. It's just, we're all human dealing with the mushiness of being a human. So anyway, yeah.
Agreed.
So then what about your relationship with your mother? Because you did stay in the church then with your mother.
Yeah. So we were in WCG. I was, like I said, I was 3 years old when my mother joined. We would meet in this, it was kind of like a banquet space in North Bergen, downtown North Bergen, on the like Union City, North Bergen border. It's called, it's still there. It's called Schutzen Park Hall. So it was kind of like a German banquet hall. They had, you know, so
it's so interesting because we attended Naberdack Hall. Where was it, Pat? Was it in Reading?
It was in San Jose.
It was in San Jose. Okay.
Yeah, Naberdack was our home church in San Jose, and it's still there. That's so funny though, because almost everybody else we talk to talks about it being the folding chairs in a middle school gymnasium. But we were in this like kind of fancy hall that was always like rented out for weddings and stuff too. And so it sounds like you were more in that kind of thing too.
Yeah. So the way it worked was they had like 3 different banquet spaces, and we would get like shuffled around accordingly, depending on what was going on in the other spaces. So we kind of got like moved around like musical chairs. The funny thing about the Montvale congregation was, for most of the year, they would meet in a Catholic high school in an auditorium of a Catholic school of all places. They're the devil, but if they provide you a space for your services, everybody's money is green. So. I mean, if they're not going to do it, I mean, somebody else will. So, I think what was it that was it Loma who once said, God answers prayers even if he uses the devil to do it. I don't remember. She said that.
I love
something like that. It was some kind of story my mother told me. I think it was, and I think I might have remembered reading it because I unfortunately I actually managed to read the whole volume 1 of Armstrong's autobiography.
Oh, so did I. Actually, what did you think?
Yeah, and I think I just remember
very elite club.
Really long. I read all the books, so I just remember it being very time consuming more than anything. But, I remember that story, it was like, she was like during the Depression or something, and she was praying for a loaf of bread, and some kids played a joke on her and went out and bought a loaf of bread and threw it through her window and, to make fun of her. And then she looked at him, she goes, God answers prayers, even if he uses uses the devil to do it, some nonsense, For all I know, she probably made that whole story up herself, But,
that sounds likely. Yeah.
But sorry, I got a little off track here.
No, that's what we do.
So from there, we met in that space from about, I want to say 1986 up until 1990. And then for whatever reason, I guess it became too expensive or something. So we ended up meeting in a hotel. It was a Holiday Inn at the time. And that was another place we got shuffled around. Sometimes we were all the way on the 12th floor, which was like a banquet space. Or if there was something going on up on 12, we would get moved down to the 2nd floor, which was like a little conference room. So we were in the Jersey City congregation until from 1986 until I want to say around, I think it was like 1995. And then as the changes, so what happened was my mother joined WCG at a very, very transitional period. So she had joined right before Herbie died, and Takach took over.
Oh, Herbie.
Yep. And the changes were very, very subtle at first. Little by little, you were allowed, women were allowed to wear makeup again. And, we were allowed to celebrate birthdays again. That's
really?
Yeah. So that was around like 1990, things kind of like loosened up a bit. And I just remember having a ball and, getting Nintendo games for my birthday and all that. And,
Oh, Justin.
That's why I had a 10th birthday party. I thought I didn't. Okay.
Mind you, this was after. So I don't know how school was for you. When I was in school, whenever there was an assembly or a kid was having a birthday in class and brought cake and goodies and whatnot, or like there was a holiday assembly or something, so I would have to sit outside of the classroom and wait for it to end. And
so
it gets worse. So what would happen was, I would have to be in the same space as all the kids who got kicked out of their classrooms for misbehaving. So I would sit outside with all these kids who had gotten kicked out for being bad. And every time a teacher or administrator would walk by, they'd give us dirty looks or have some kind of snide remark. And, I had no time to explain my story. I'm like, I'm 7 years old. I mean, I'm not that articulate yet. So I'm trying to explain to them, no, I'm not with them. And, there was no,
that's so destructive.
So
what I started,
this is really resonating. Yeah,
so
really resonating.
What I started to do after a while was I would bring some of my school books with me. So that way I could sit there with a book in front of my face so nobody could see me. So the only caveat to that was I had to turn my books upside down because we had book covers on our books back in those days. And so my name was on my book. So I had to make sure they were upside down so nobody could see my name on the front of the book or what class I was in. So after enduring all of that, it was nice. It was nice to finally be able to observe and celebrate birthdays and all that. But in back of all of that, after enduring that, to say, it's okay now, no harm, no foul, right?
Right.
But yeah, it was, that was, I remember I told that story to my wife and she couldn't believe it. She's like, oh my God, that sounds so cruel.
Yeah, it just sounds so familiar. So, I don't think I was ever pulled out of school. Were you, Pats? But I just kind of had to sit there and, not eat pepperoni pizza and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think I ever got pulled out of school.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I ate all the cupcakes. Nope. I did not say no to birthday cupcakes in school. Sorry. But it really strikes a note that they made you sit outside and be separate and not get to have the fun. We felt like that. Fun was discouraged. It wasn't okay. And so it's like that persecution narrative that churches love to talk about. It's like, oh, they were proving to you how elect you were and also a piece of shit.
Yeah,
God, that's infuriating.
And the funny thing is that there are positive and negative stories with art class. I don't know. So, so when I was a kid in art class, at first, whenever it was like Halloween or Christmas or Easter, they would do some kind of holiday themed project, and I couldn't do it. And at first, I would have to explain to the teacher, I can't do it because it goes against my religion. And she would ask me, oh, are you Jewish? I'm like,
Yeah.
no. Like, are you a Jehovah's Witness? No. What are you? Like, I don't know.
Seventh-day Adventist?
I would just tell her, I don't know. Like, I'm 7. I don't know. And
Right?
yeah, at one point, after being asked this question multiple times, I actually went to my mother and said, they ask me these questions and I have no answer. So, like, what church are we in? And she would just tell me, we're in God's true church.
Oh, dear.
And even
no.
even at 7 years old, I knew I could not say that, to my teachers. So what ended up, what ended up happening from that was, it was explained. She went to the school and she explained the situation. So after a while, the art teacher would tell the class, well, we're doing this for Christmas. And then she would say, Justin, I know you can't do it because it goes against your religious beliefs, so we'll have you do something else. The positive story, that's where the positive part of this story is in. So, like, for Valentine's Day, all the kids are doing, like, hearts, or on Halloween, they're doing pumpkins. And I'm doing like a Ninja Turtle. And all of the kids are looking at what I'm doing. It's like, oh, my God, I want to do that instead, too.
Some light at the end of the tunnel. That really fucked with my mind too. When you just said, Justin, when a teacher said because it goes against your religious beliefs, I'm like, it wasn't your fucking religious beliefs. It was your parents. And we, like you said, you didn't know what the hell was going on. Yeah. That's exactly how I felt as a kid too. I just felt small. I'm like, what? Yeah. I'm not good enough to have all these.
And you know what's funny about that line, looking back with adult eyes at that line of questioning, I think back to it now, like being interrogated about what my religious views are. As an adult, I would have said, none of your fucking business. Well, I'm 7 years old. What do I stand to gain from lying about that? Yeah. If I tell you I can't do it for religious reasons, take me at face value.
Right.
Why do you need to know that for?
I know. I feel like, I can't say what people would do now because everyone's crazy. But I feel like the prevailing social whatever in our country would be more like, "Ooh, I'm not gonna touch religion with a 10-foot pole." Like you say that's fine, whatever. I'm not saying anything. But who knows? It's funny you mentioned that you kind of went through that struggle of having to have the teacher figure it all out, because our parents had a 1-pager. Like a letter that they had detailed out all the things we were not allowed to do that they would meet with the teacher and give at the beginning of the year.
I didn't know that, Pets. That's embarrassing.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Good times. Okay, so I think we got on this track, though, because we were talking about how your relationship with your mother through these years, because you're having all these experiences, but you're in the church and your mom is like leading the charge of this.
Yeah. So as messed up as messed up as things were growing up in the church, I was actually, I would say, my sisters would say too, my mother always favored me because I was the firstborn and I was the only boy out of 3 kids. So she had a tendency to give me preferential treatment. That could also backfire because, sometimes I would bear the brunt of the most strict, because I guess that kind of comes with the territory of, you're the oldest, so you have the biggest cross to bear, or you have the biggest, you have to be an example for everybody and that sort of deal. But I was a mama's boy to a point. As time went on, as I became a teenager, we ended up kind of, as teenagers go, you kind of want to like forge your own path and do your own thing. And, but my mother made sure to still have like a tight rein on me, to kind of like make sure that whatever you do, don't leave the church, She ended up getting remarried in June of 1994 to somebody in the church. Yeah. Okay. So, and in 95, when this was when things really started to shift. So around that time, Tkach had been sick. I think he had like stomach cancer or something like that.
Oh, I think you're right. But it's post his 94, like the big, what was it, Christmas Eve sermon?
Yeah. Yes. I remember it was like we could watch Saturday cartoons before church. We could play video games. I used to bring back then I had a Sega Game Gear. I used to bring it with me to church. I mean, I'm like, hey, this is great, for that very brief like glimpse. And then in the fall of 95, Tkach dies. His son takes over. And we go to our last Feast of Tabernacles with WCG that year. It was in Myrtle Beach.
Oh, been to that one.
And we went to, I think it might have been I think it was the night service the night before. And then we went to the double service the next day. And it was a big, I'll never forget. Like they actually had a choir that was like swaying back and forth and singing the old time gospel stuff or Baptist or whatever.
Yes, because they never did shit like that before. Yeah. It was always like really boring. You sing and then there's no even clapping. They just walk off stage and then it's really this awkward silence until the minister gets up. That was like the worst part ever of church services. Yeah. So embarrassing.
Whoa.
And I remember Junior was given this whole sermon about how we had to change the way we were, the way we were doing things because we were doing things by the old covenant and we're under the new covenant now. And, observing the Sabbath isn't that important because it's worshiping the Sabbath and we're not supposed to worship the Sabbath. And I'm looking over at my mother and her husband, and they just look totally like disgusted, like the whole time. And that was like kind of like when I knew, it was like, that's it, we're done here. I felt it coming. We never attended another service while we were down there again. We came back. We were my parents and my uncle. So my mother in 1990, or I think it was 91, actually got her youngest brother, my uncle, into the church. So he was, he was one of those like long hair, like Aquanet hair metal guitar players in high school. And now, and my first bully. And he was also, and now all of a sudden, he's finding religion now. My mother had sucked him in, and he cut all his hair off, and he was still my bully. He just went from one extreme to the opposite. And
he bullied you with verses, didn't he?
He bullied me any way he could. So we were I was born in 81. He was born in 71. So there was only a 10-year gap between us. So, no matter how old I got, he always saw me as just this little kid that he could condescend to and talk down to, and thought he was always smarter than at all times, and that sort of thing. But she got him in I think in 91. And they were all sitting around the table with church literature from different groups. They were initially leaning towards, they were kind of like having this like round table discussion, like,
Wait, so you're saying they're all like, oh no, worldwide has strayed from the truth, so we're going to find out who's carrying God's message forward?
Right. Because at this point, as after the 1994 split, all of these offshoots are being formed, right? Yeah. Some of them had already formed,
yes,
but then there were some new ones, and probably just like the same as our parents, Justin. Our parents were looking for like, okay, what's the right one? It wasn't like you could just go and choose one of these offshoots. They had to find the right one, the God's true church.
So funny story. I think it was around, I want to say like 92 or 93. One day my mother was like, going around, Rob, and I think like because certain members of our congregation at that time were just mysteriously receiving like issues of like the Philadelphia Trumpet, and they didn't know what it was.
So smart.
Yeah, and they were and I guess it had Armstrong sitting in his stupid chair like on the front of it.
Stupid chariot guided.
They're all like up in arms, like, how dare they send us this? They're whoever this person is, they're attacking God's church. And then as time went on, more.
Did they get the watchtower too?
Yeah. So my mother actually, I actually have a funny story about that. One time, a witness knocked on our door. Oh, and my mom actually started to argue with her. She's like, I'm not interested in anything you have to say because I'm in God's true church. And she goes, well, I'm in God's true church too. She goes, no, you're not. You're wearing makeup. You're of the devil. And she closed the door on her.
Okay, I can picture that right now. It's like, okay, a witness on the outside of the door, someone from WCG on the other side of the door, just going at it like,
King Kong versus Godzilla.
No, I'm in the true church.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And the Mormon across the street is like, excuse me, it's me.
Yeah. So, PCG was actually I think the first splinter group that kind of came out of it, and then that we had ever heard of before. And at that point, we kind of viewed even by COG standards, he was kind of viewed as kind of like a cuckoo, like a weirdo, because it's he wasn't from Ambassador College, he wasn't one of the very special chosen apostles of Armstrong. So it's who the hell is this guy?
So you're saying this is Philadelphia PCG, Philadelphia Church of God, Gerald Fleury?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but fast forward a little more. So they're all sitting around a table. Initially, they were leaning towards, I think, the United Church of God, because my uncle back then was dating a former young ambassador who lived up in Massachusetts. So, and I knew this because they would alternate. He would spend a weekend with her up there. He would spend a weekend down here with her. And I know that because, I would go down to, his room to watch TV and play video games. And every now and then, you got to take a pit stop. And when I did, I would see her panties on the floor. So, totally new covenant. Definitely. That's a very, very new covenant.
Very new.
New beginnings.
Like that. Like my new favorite thing is, sorry, I'm going to tangent. My new favorite thing is Mormon soaking. Have you heard of this?
Oh my God.
They say it's okay.
I just learned what that was.
If you put it in, but don't move, that makes it fine. And then you, but now people are like, but what if we're not the ones moving? Sorry, this is where you were going to go. Do you want to say it?
No, well, this was during Ryan's interview, right? When she was explaining, you have friends come in and you shake the bed. The fucking hoops you have to go through.
Then you're not doing it.
God's laws.
Yikes.
It's the poop hole loophole. Just stick it in the ass and it's fine because God doesn't care about that hole.
Yeah,
that's right.
And Herbie would say, you're not breaking necessarily the letter of the law, but there's the spirit of the law, which is much worse.
What the fuck does that even mean?
I heard stories.
So it's technically, you're not doing something wrong the way we say it's wrong, but you're still doing it wrong. You're still doing the wrong thing.
Totally. By the way, Justin, you also read Herbie's autobiography, Volume 1, correct?
Sorry.
Do you remember? Yeah, it was quite a snooze fest, but the part I found interesting was, do you remember when he had gone down to Louisiana for that job, that logging job? He was a clerk at some sort of lumber company. He got sidetracked with marketing, but long story short, that kind of stuck out because I was kind of following his timeline, right? Mm. And then in some expose, one of his upper echelon dudes mentioned he actually lost his virginity to a prostitute when he was living down there in Louisiana. I remember that part.
I don't remember that story, but I could totally believe it. Yeah.
I remember Herbie talking about how he would go on dates when he was down there and how he was just so disgusted with today's youth. They need all these dopamine levels, all these dopamine kicks. And meanwhile, he's just going on walks with women and having talks and maybe he'd get a little racy and hold hands. Like a job interview. And he would say all these girls wanted to marry me, but they just weren't right for me because they come off as harlots or whatever. According to one of your dudes, you fucked a harlot down there. So
I buy that.
It's probably true. He really had an affinity for beautiful women.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't? But
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, I had always heard the rumors of, his his questionable relationship with his daughter Dorothy.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know, but for sure, I don't think anybody does. But yeah, I could see it. So, like I said, like they were kind of initially leading towards, I think, the United Church of God, and then they started passing around literature from the Global Church of God, and I think they resonated with GCG more just because they knew who Rod Meredith was. Like Rod Meredith was essentially like Herbie's like right hand man, and he's one of his like top guys. I call like I would say maybe like Luca Brasi to like Vito Corleone or some shit like that.
Yeah. Oh, everyone knew who Rod was, and it's my understanding that Global Church of God was one of the first offshoots. It was just a collection of different ministers.
Yes.
Put together, and that one didn't last very long. Correct.
Yeah. So he left I think he started the Global Church in '93. We joined it in '95. So we went right from WCG right into GCG. So, and we held our church services in the basement of a Masonic lodge. Awesome. Another one, I mean, hey, if they're offering you the space, they may be demonic, but hey, you know what? Our money's green, their money's green. So, hey, why not? So,
I mean, churches are so busy fighting each other. They only come together when they have a common interest. It's like Judeo-Christian. Like they don't give a shit about each other. In fact, they're always fighting. Like they only come together when they need to, when they get political. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When they need to stop a 10-year-old rape victim from getting an abortion, they're locked in arms. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Oh, that's some shit.
Yeah. So,
right.
We were in the Global Church from 95 to 98. So, and I went to Global Youth Camp in 98, the summer of 98. I think that's 27 years ago now. Still trying to wrap my head around that. 27 years, my God.
I know what happened.
So, and it was a blast. That was a lot of fun. I mean, I don't remember learning anything spiritual. The big thing that I did, the one thing that the big leap that I took at summer camp was volunteering to do the opening prayer for the church service.
Ooh.
So
really investing in your faith, huh?
Yeah. Well, you know what it was? There were a lot of like beautiful girls there, and my whole thing was, all right, I gotta try to make myself not look like a dork like I am at home. So I gotta try to do all this impressive shit to try to impress girls. So that was my thing, and they loved me because they would say, "Oh, say coffee. Oh, say coffee." Say
the accent.
Yeah, because all the girls that I would talk to, they all loved that about me. That was my thing. That's what I was known for. So and looking back at my summer camp, looking back at my binder, I could remember all it was me with my arm around a different girl, the whole friggin' album. So I was even a
good times for you, huh?
Yeah, I was a topics master for our camp. So we all had all the different we had boys and girls camps. We were broken down into 4 different groups, and we all had a night where we had a dinner and a dance and all that. And they actually made me the topics master with one of the girls from our group. And where we get to ask all kinds of questions and kind of have ask silly fun questions and stuff like that, or my favorite one that we came up with was if Adam and Eve were the first man and woman, did they have belly buttons?
Excellent.
That sort of thing. So would
you say it was like the Global Church of God equivalent of being prom king?
Oh.
Maybe I don't know. I would never hang that kind of title on myself. I don't have that kind of je ne sais quoi to do, to be a prom king. I don't think, but yeah, maybe, perhaps. They thought they picked me because they said they thought I was the best speaker, because like we would do like a speech class during the camp, and they thought I was the best speaker out of everybody. So that's what they tapped me for. They tapped me for that. So,
That's
but
great.
it was fun, for what it was. Then after the summer, I remember we went to the Feast of Tabernacles. It was our last Feast of Tabernacles in GCG. It was up in Niagara Falls. And when we got back, we had heard about the church split. So because Rod Meredith had gotten into a big heated argument with the board of directors, and they actually kicked him out. They got rid of him. So he went and he started the Living Church of God. And I remember the church service. So we had our regional pastor tell us what was happening. And after the service, what he did was he laid out a flyer, a letter from each side explaining their side of the story. And that everybody in the congregation had to decide which side they wanted to be on.
Whoa.
And so what ended up happening, what ended up happening was those of us who stuck with Rod Meredith and went over to LCG, we would meet in that space in the morning. After our service was over, as we were leaving, the GCG people would come in and they would have their service right after.
Oh, good.
And it was funny because whenever we would be leaving the parking lot, we would see like the other people who used to be our wonderful friends. All of a sudden, it's like they're the enemy, like they're North Korea now. Like we can't have anything to do with them. So, they're all pulling in as we're leaving.
Heathens.
Across the Mason-Dixon line or something. What the heck?
Yep. So that was.
Never mind all those atheists and heathens out there and the pagans. It's those people who used to be part of God's true church.
Yep. So
they aren't anymore.
They probably watch TV on Friday nights for all we know.
Oh, the shame.
But so you're saying that like you had that break where you could do like Saturday morning cartoons and birthdays and stuff, but like once you were global and then living, that went away again because you were back to the true stuff.
Yeah, we even did Easter Sunday at my grandparents'.
Ooh.
The one and only time. And but we didn't last long enough for Christmas. So because we left UCG by fall, so we missed the boat on that. But so we were in LCG for I want to say a year. And the messed up thing about it was I was planning on going to the summer camp again in the summer of '99. And I had even already bought the plane ticket. I think it was like a $500 plane ticket. Back in those days, I was working a part-time job or making minimum wage. Back then, it was like $5.15 an hour. And I had saved all this money to buy this plane ticket so I could go to the summer camp. And then as time went on, my mother and her husband decided, these people are too lukewarm. They're getting wishy-washy on things like, is it okay to wear makeup? Is it okay to eat gelatin? And the elder didn't like what the elder was saying. It was like, well, we just got to have unity. Well, that's not what God would say. Unity. So, all of a sudden it's like they're looking at their favorite term was, they're Laodicean,
Oh my God.
I think the correct pronunciation is Laodicean. But they didn't know that. So as time went on, they became more and more disillusioned with LCG, and then they started watching Gerald Flurry and they started reading the Philadelphia Church. The big difference about joining PCG was it was like the old days of WCG. You couldn't just walk in and attend a church service. You had to be vetted first. So what they had to do was they had to read, I think, Mystery of the Ages, and they had to read Malachi's Malachi's message is, I guess, that was like, I think like that was Gerald Flurry's big manifesto that he did with John Amos. Not John Amos. What was it? Poor John Amos, rest in peace. I don't want to get James Evans mixed up in this.
Well, Justin, it's my understanding too that Gerald Flurry is actually the one that bought out all of the literature.
Yes, and there was a whole big copyright fight about it.
I remember reading about that. Yeah,
yep.
Because it still belonged to. Well, at the time, it was still Worldwide Church of God, even though they went through the upheaval, and then they slowly changed the name to Grace Communion International. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All those stories, because my mother and her husband, they were very vested in, what was happening. Initially they had won the court case, and then it was appealed, and they lost the court case, and then I think what ended up happening after a while was the WCG side, and I think Stanley Rader was their lawyer throughout all of this while all this was going on. He was
more behind the scenes by this point. He was still involved. He just kind of left public eye after his big scandal with money.
Yep.
Yeah.
And eventually, I think they ultimately won the rights to republish the literature. I always by that point I was kind of tuned out. I always kind of just chalked it up to WCG was just tired of spending money on this shit, and they're like, all right, fine, the hell with it, just take it. We're tired of dealing with you,
I guess, especially if they didn't really abide by it anymore.
Mm-hmm. So I remember it was summer of '99, and I remember that because it was a very big. We're having a really bad drought at the time. We were all on the Sabbath, we were all meeting at her one church friend's house every Saturday, reading the literature. They're all talking amongst themselves about all their boring crap, and that I don't care about. And finally, the regional pastor and the pastor for the specific congregation, they came and they saw us and they interviewed us and asked us all kinds of questions about, how do I guess it was all the standard questions have you read this book? Have you read that book? How do you feel about this, that, and the other thing? DDD, whatever the hell else you want to put in. But, ultimately they decided, okay, you're in. Congratulations. But my uncle had to wait. He had to, because, as I stated earlier, he was engaging in over the years, previous few years in some extracurricular activities. So, you do that and it's usually I think a 6-month waiting period that you have to endure. But he didn't have to go. I don't think he had to do the whole 6 months because he went to the Feast of Tabernacles with us that year. Man. And that Feast of Tabernacles, and I'll never forget it. It was in Prince Edward Island. It was 1999. And, but in GCG, I had all friends from camp. I had a great time. We all got along great. It was fun. These kids were awful. I mean, they had all, it was they all knew each other from the time they were babies, and they were just such a strong clique that, they didn't like anybody else coming into their clique. So anytime I would see a girl or somebody and I would say hi and I'd be asking questions, oh, where are you from? This, that, and the other thing. They would all laugh at me for it. It's like, who the hell is this guy coming in here talking to our women? That sort of thing.
With that sexy accent, what's he doing? I feel intimidated.
So it was So that's why I say of all the experiences in the COGs that I had, PCG was hands down the absolute pits. It was the worst. It was very depressing, very hard. It was the old time religion. It was back to no makeup, no holidays, no nothing. And The other thing that loosened up in WCG, now that I'm on this tangent, was, you could see doctors. I was able to go to the doctor when I had to. In PCG, that was no longer the case.
Oh shit. Okay.
Is it still?
Yes. So, and I think I've told you this story in comments before. So long after I was gone, long after I had left PCG, what happened was one day during a church service, my uncle collapsed and suffered a seizure during a church service. So he got rushed to the hospital. I think they did an MRI or something on him, and they found that he had a brain tumor. So they recommended that they obviously, you have to have this tumor removed. And he wouldn't do it because, as per the healing doctrine of the church, you have to trust that God will remove the tumor and heal you. And and by this point, he was married with a baby. His wife had a baby, I think, in like 2009. They had a son in 2009. And as time went on, the tumor grew, and as the summarily happens, he became an invalid. He would have frequent seizures. He couldn't work anymore. He couldn't drive anymore. He couldn't really leave the house anymore. He was a complete invalid.
Wait, so it was okay for him to be rushed to the hospital to get checked out by doctors, but not have a procedure done by doctors?
Don't ask me to explain it. I have no. I'm on your side on that one.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like Nancy and I may have been quite sheltered from that aspect of the harm that the church caused people, because for whatever reason, like our mom needed a C-section to have all of us, and they just did that, and then like we always went to doctors, like. The number of times the pink amoxicillin was in our fridge, so I don't know what mental gymnastics our parents went through to be okay with that. And so then I hear stories like that, and fuck.
Welcome to religion.
But before things loosened up, there was many an anointing cloth. Man, I remember like getting those in the mail, and I remember one time like wanted to keep it, and my mother said, "No, it's a sin. You can't keep it. You have to throw it away immediately."
What?
Because I was fascinated. I'm like, what the hell is this thing? You put the cloth on the head and you pray over. I don't have to tell you how it works, but yeah.
No, thank you. I forgot. I remember like one anointing oil cloth time, but I don't remember the logistics. So that's on the head. Okay.
Yeah. So what happened? Yeah. The way it worked was you got the anointing cloth. It had a little spot of oil on it. Your mother or your father, they put it on your head. They prayed over you to be healed. And then you had to throw it away immediately because you didn't idolize the anointing cloth. It was about having faith.
What the fuck?
I guess
so fucking stupid.
Evidently keeping the anointing cloth was idolatry, so you had to throw it away instantly.
I mean, that just sounds like magical practices to me, but okay.
Yep. So he ended up passing away. Actually, it's going to be coming up on 10 years. One day his wife and son went out to the supermarket food shopping. They came home and they found him face dead on the floor. So, and that was about, I want to say 4 or 5 months after my grandmother had passed away from stomach cancer. So at this point I had no relationship with my mother. So, where do you want me to start?
How old were you when your uncle had passed?
I was 34.
Okay.
So yeah, he had died. So actually, and I remember this because I think we had just gotten back from a wedding. Like one of our friends was getting married out in California. It was a momentous occasion because I had never been on the West Coast before, and we did the whole Disneyland thing and all that. And, it was a blast. And then I came home to find out that this shit happened. But
you're long out of the church by the time your uncle passed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So okay. I left the church in 2001, like you said earlier. what precipitated that was, so back then I was actually working in a mailroom. I'll never forget this. I was doing overnight shifts, working in a mailroom through a temp agency. And there was this woman who she was a security guard on the floor who would walk around, do tours on the floor. And one of these nights, like she passed me a note that she liked me and gave me her number and everything. And I went up to her in her little cubicle and she asked me, "Oh, do you date?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" I'd never been on a date before, at least not unsupervised. The only date I had been on prior to that point was in the 99 Feast of Tabernacles when I met a girl. We were staying in a hotel. We went to the restaurant in the hotel and her parents sat in a table across from us to watch what we were doing. So yeah. That was that
likes an audience.
Yeah. So
not to get too far off topic, but Justin, I don't know if you ever saw our interview with David. He was one of our real early interviews. He always said that, like, he always had such luck with the girls from the church. That was really the only good part for him. It was like he went to school and the girls ignored him, but in the Worldwide Church of God,
I got some
kinds of tale.
And I'll tell you, like, from personal experience, I'll never forget the first time, and I think it was the Feast of Tabernacles in '98, my last one in GCG. The first time I ever shared my hymnal with a girl, that was in COG land, that was equivalent to getting to third base. You're as good at, you could just carve that notch in the friggin' dashboard. I mean, that was an unbelievable accomplishment. Like, that was like.
Would you like to sing to Jesus together?
Yeah. Oh dear.
You look like someone, and I'm trying to think of the name of the show. Give me 1 second, Justin. Sal from Impractical Jokers.
Oh boy, I have to Google this now because I've heard of that show, but I've never seen it.
You're both Italian American, but I feel like you look a little like him.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fun.
I was afraid you were going to show me somebody fat, but that.
No.
Right.
What in the world, Justin? You have a lot of negative self-talk going on there.
Yeah. He does.
Yeah. Where does that come from? I wonder.
Jeez, I wonder now.
Yeah. My therapist tells me the same thing all the time. It's like, why do you put yourself down all the time? So sometimes I try to pass it off as like kind of like just like self-deprecating humor.
I do the same, Justin. I do the same. Yeah. Laugh it off. Yeah. Isn't that awful? All these little ways that the church just fucked us up as adults.
Mm-hmm.
Look what survivors you are.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got in the way of your burp.
It's okay.
And
how dare you interrupt my bodily functions?
Therapy helps a lot. I'm in therapy currently. I've done it multiple times in my life. But no matter how much therapy you do, you could even be on medication. I've gone that route before because I ended up with a generalized anxiety disorder. No matter how much help you get, unfortunately, these groups, they break something that in you, like, that just doesn't get fixed.
Yeah.
You find ways to work around it. When if you're fortunate enough in this country, so, we have a healthcare industry. We don't have a healthcare, system. So, not everybody is fortunate enough to have the means to, treat their mental illnesses and their issues and the like. But, I can at least say I'm fortunate enough to be able to get the mental health care that I need.
I want that for everybody.
Yeah. I hold out hope against hope someday that universal health care will become a reality, but
that would be nice.
Well, there's no deity coming. It's up to us if we want the world tomorrow,
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
world,
one of my favorite things. I don't know if you follow Tizzy on Instagram. He's one of my favorite people. But ever since Trump got elected, his mantra is and I repeat it over and over: no one is coming to save us. We are on our own.
Yeah.
So
stop with the superheroes, people. They are not real.
Yep.
We can all be superheroes. We can all be a piece of the superness of us.
Mm-hmm.
I probably have too much hope in humanity, but
hope is all we have, Pats.
But the thing is, I will say that it's true, because every time we do one of these interviews or really sit down where someone can be safe enough to say their real story, their real things, every single one of these people are beautiful, complex, gifted, emotionally rich people. And so to think we have all these stupid whatever people around, it just kind of upsets me, because I don't think anyone is bad or evil or wrong or dumb. We all are dealing with the situation that we came up in,
Mm-hmm.
And if we can see that and hold that for ourselves and then use that as compassion to look at other people, to me, that's how we get there. And it does seem like a long battle, but I don't know.
Forever.
The fact of what we saw in the cult, I just feel like it gives us this moment to be able to speak our truth in a way that people will resonate with, even outside of the cult, and be able to rise to the moment of doing something for humans. You are making a difference right now, Justin, for people who listen to your story, because they will see themselves in so many pieces of it.
Mm-hmm. It's already resonated with me, Justin, you talking about what you went through, in school. And I did just want to point out, thank you for being a cycle breaker. We definitely have to draw attention to people that are cycle breakers. That shit is not going to continue through your children.
No,
you have stopped it.
Yeah.
So ever since our son was born, I say it to anybody who will listen. My primary objective, my primary goal in life is to make sure that my son has as healthy and as happy and as normal a childhood as humanly possible. He's not going to endure any of the same bullshit that I had to endure growing up.
So was your situation, I'm assuming it's kind of similar to mine, where you never believed in this shit. You just made yourself small. You were confused about what was going on. You never really believe. Well, some of it may have gotten in due to the indoctrination, but
I made a sincere effort to believe what I was hearing and what I was reading and what I was studying. And the thing with that is, and for me, it was the more I read it and the more I studied it, the more I came to the conclusion that it was just a bunch of made up bullshit.
That's how atheists are made.
Yeah. It's like Penn Jillette once said, read the Bible because we need more atheists, and nothing will get you there faster than reading the damn Bible. That's really how it happened.
So true.
Yeah, that's really how it happened for me. I studied the Bible. I studied the Bible throughout the course of my life, essentially to the point where I read the Bible from cover to cover. And the more I tried to believe what it said, the more I realized, this is garbage. This is nonsense. It's just, talking donkeys. Yeah, no thanks. I'll pass on.
It's mythology.
Right.
It's a perfect mythological book.
Yeah, yep. A bear killing kids because they made fun of a man's bald head. Yeah.
Oh, Elijah.
Yeah.
Yep.
The OG incel, evidently.
Oh, I love that.
You know what? I'm honest.
For an episode.
Honestly, I'm convinced the Old Testament, the whole Old Testament was written by OG incels. Because if you go by what they teach, it's the women are the root of all evil. They're the cause of all evil. So who believes that shit? Incels. Connect the dots.
Patriarchy.
like, here's this
Men that cannot get
here's
laid.
this beautiful woman standing over here who I have no chance in hell with because I have a horse's ass for a personality. It's all her fault, not mine, you know.
Oh, you're so right, Justin. You're so right.
Everybody else
note
is
to
wrong,
self,
not
with
me.
that.
You know? So at this point in time, we had bounced from WCG to GCG to LCG, and finally we were in PCG. And at this point, I'm 20 years old. I'm not happy where I am. I don't like anybody my age in the congregation, and I'm becoming more and more disillusioned with the church because, you know, all these years I was taught we were in God's true church. And then as time went on, it's just, you know, oh, well, these people are no good now, but these people, they're going to get it right. And, you know, no, they've lost their way, but these people have it right. And, you know, by that age, like you're just coming out of your teenage years and, you know, you're kind of starting to see the world with different eyes. And at that time, I was starting actually to get really into politics, not in a good way. So I started getting into politics because I grew up in a conservative house, in a conservative family. And whenever I would spend a lot of time at my grandparents' house, and my grandmother was an avid Rush Limbaugh fan. She actually used to get a Limbaugh letter. So, you know, so I was back in those days, I was all about George Bush getting him elected. So, you know, you can hate, you're more than free to hate 2000 Justin. So, you know, and, you know,
we don't blame you. We don't blame you.
You know, I was just coming out of, you know, a strict far right extremist cult. So, you know, I mean, it was a natural segue. So
let's have some compassion for 20-year-old Justin, who wasn't allowed to see beyond that bullshit up until that point.
Okay, fair enough.
Hugs to him.
Okay. So, you know, I want, you know, and I wanted to get more involved in political things and, you know, helping people. But you weren't supposed to do that because you weren't supposed to care about anybody outside of the church. This is why, and incidentally, this is why when I see, you know, when people get shocked by the lack of empathy that evangelical like Christians have for people who are less fortunate, and you know, it's like, how could you feel that way? I'm like, yeah, I get it, because that, you know, I grew up around that shit. You weren't supposed to care about anybody who didn't think like you. And that's the mentality that the whole MAGA cult has. You know, if you're not just like me, you can die. I don't care about you. You know, the world is not our family. We only care about the family and, you know, the inner circle that is going to save the world from Satan. You know, that sort of deal.
The elect, the chosen.
Yeah.
The elite.
So, but you know, I went off on a little bit of another tangent there.
No, this is good. Keep going.
So around this time, like I said, around this time, I'm already getting very disillusioned by everything. And I just happened to come across this girl at work. And she takes an interest in me without me having to make an effort. That was a big, you know, because that was something I had never really experienced before.
You stud.
Evidently. So I don't. So she passed me kind of like a love note with her phone number in it. So, you know, we started talking on the phone, you know, and talking on the phone turned into like whispering sweet nothings over the phone and all this. And we finally decided that we wanted to go on a date. My mother, the real life, if you ever watch like Everybody Loves Raymond, she was like the real life Marie Barone who like eavesdropped on everything. You know, she caught wind, and you know, I pretty much told her this was all happening during like the whole like the 7 days of unleavened bread. This was like around that time. So you know, I told her I like her. She likes me. We want to go out on a date. And it was strictly forbidden because for two reasons. One was because she wasn't a member of the church. You can't date outside the church. And two, she was black. So she was African from Kenya. And yeah, so interracial dating in PCG in the year 2001 was strictly forbidden. You could not date outside your race. Yeah.
See, we were in California, where I'm pretty sure some of that was overlooked because it was fucking California, where it was everybody there. But like, oh my gosh, 2001?
Yep. So, and I'll never forget this. This was my last service, my last ever PCG service was the last day of Unleavened Bread, 2001. After the service had concluded, the second service, I'm looking at my mother and her husband talking to the pastor. They're in the front of the room. I'm watching them. They're looking at him. And then my mother's looking over at me with tears in her eyes, looking angry at me. And they're looking at him and looking at her. And basically, the pastor told her, he knows the rules. He either stays or he dates this girl, but he can't come back anymore. So I said, all right, fine. I've had enough. I'm done. And that was the end. That was the end. Wow. I never looked back. And we went on our date. And, we had a on again, off again relationship for about 2 years. Ultimately it didn't work out because I, at that point, was very damaged. I did not have, I basically had to learn how to live life on the fly. I had nobody really to guide my path. So, it was basically seat of the pants. You got to learn by making your own mistakes. And, it was not, I made a lot of mistakes over the years. It was rough, and whenever something would go particularly wrong, you would start to wonder, oh, well, hey, my mother would always say, if you don't return to the church someday, you might end up dead on the street or something,
Oh my.
It was always, you know how it is with, they always have to try to scare you. That's why the Jehovah's Witnesses blacklist you, and even in the COGs. So that was the other thing about PCG. Like PCG was a really high, very controlling. It was more controlling than the other splinter groups in that they actually legit fellowship and marked people. None of the other COGs at that point did that anymore. Maybe PAX, maybe David PAX, RCG. I have no direct experience with them. So, as far as the splinter groups go, I think PCG and RCG were always kind of like the 1A, 1B, and the really hardcore, like old school, extreme rules as in pro wrestling.
I know Gerald Fleury was definitely that top tier. The way I understood it was United Church of God was one of the more progressive ones.
Yes.
And Philadelphia Church of God was one of the most strict. Yes. And David C. Pack is just he's
So my parents, my mother and my uncle actually so David Pack came to our GCG congregation once to give a sermon, and this man was like such, you know how people can be pathological liars, but they're not good at it. So that was David Pack. And I don't know if it was because he thought, hey, these people are so friggin' stupid, they'll believe any stupid shit that I say and they'll eat it up. Because he, they're all sociopaths to varying degrees, but so sometimes I think he just said stupid shit to get people to believe it, to get his rocks off. So he actually told a story about how he was actually going on an expedition, this big expedition to Mount Ararat to see Noah's Ark. Because we all know that that's real, right? My uncle, who's 10 years older than me, who was so much smarter, always knew so much more than I did. Well, he was like practically begging him to go. Oh, can I go with you? I would love to be able to go with you. It's like, nah, I don't think we can. It's only there's only a very select few they let do this. So Oh, okay, yeah, I could totally buy that. So
Who sucks the most asshole?
Yeah.
Yeah. As if Noah's Ark is actually somewhere. What the fuck?
Fuck.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
that was my one and only. That was our, I think, one and only. And we held so many of these people on a pedestal. One of my mother's favorites, I think, was Mr. Waterhouse. Like that was such a huge like rock star name in our house. It was like, oh, Mr. Waterhouse is coming. He's gonna like give this incredible, and they would even like go. I remember, I think at one point, like he went and like did this like Sunday service. It wasn't a holy day or anything. I think it was just like a Sunday Bible study or some crap. And, but they would go and they would hang on his every word because it was Mr. Waterhouse. I mean, why wouldn't you?
All that makes me think of is Monsters, Inc.
Yeah.
The big villain in Monsters, Inc. was Mr. Waternoose.
Wasn't Waterhouse the minister that would preach for like 3 or 4 hours? Really long sermons.
I've heard that. I was fortunate enough to be spared from that.
Okay.
So the Waterhouse event was such a special event that evidently it was adults only. So I would stay at my grandparents' house while, they had to like, so they slurped up, I guess, 3 or 4 hours of that dreck. I have no idea. I don't know what it entailed like directly, but and that was the other kind of like, I think, messed up aspect with these, with these pastors is like they were held to such a high regard. But what would end up happening was, I think it was like, what was it, like every 3 years they would all get like rotated out to different regions.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. So in our congregation, every time every time a regional pastor got transferred to a different region, I don't know if this happened everywhere, but we used to have this like whole big like goodbye ceremony to like commemorate their time there. And, I remember one particular year we had one pastor, his name was, I think it was Greg Sargent, his name was.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
And I remember we had actually like this whole party and a talent show after the church service. And I remember this.
Were there finger foods?
No, but there was a lasagna with sour ricotta cheese in it. I remember.
Oh, y'all did it different on the East Coast then. We were all about finger foods over here.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of Italians in New Jersey, so Italian food is a big staple here. So, but yeah, they didn't get it right. They used bad ricotta cheese and it was not good. So, anyway, and I remember the talent show because actually, like my sisters like did a baton act on stage to Dream Lover by Mariah Carey. So, so yeah, and that's how you knew like things were really like loosening up, that they would allow a song like that to be played, at a church event,
Yeah, wow.
Well, okay, what year was it though? We were in Sacramento. I want to say it was late 80s or something, maybe even. They had the children's choir sing Heal the World by Michael Jackson. And literally when they announced it, the whole Feast of Tabernacles, like the whole place just went, what? You're going to do a Michael Jackson song? He's definitely evil.
But Patty, this was around the time when like Armstrong had reshaped his image and given him this self-proclaimed title of Ambassador for World Peace. And so all of a sudden, he likes brown and black people, and he's bringing in all the cultures of the world.
Yeah.
So that would make sense that they would have. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't he at one point start getting called Grandpa Armstrong? I think like towards the end of his life.
Yes, he had the children from around the world call him that. Gross. do you see the disgust? Like Nancy and I cannot take the disgust off our faces right now.
I think you're right, Nancy. I think we need 10 more of these. But yeah,
I don't know. Okay. There was one episode I had edited, Justin. I do all the long form editing usually first.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some sermon of Armstrong's where he was talking about, and the children, the beautiful little children. And just to be a snarky bitch, I decided to put some words on the screen real briefly that said, yeah, we know you like children, you sick fuck. And it was just for like a second, and then he continued talking.
You know what? While we're on the topic of Armstrong sermons, I'll share one of my most memorable
Please do.
moments. So towards the end, I don't know if it was his last. It was probably one of his like next to last, because his final sermons mostly consisted of like gaslighting the congregation, like like most of you don't get it and you'll never get it, no matter it was all like piss and vinegar, and but there was this one point at this one particular sermon, I'll never forget it. So we weren't allowed to go to doctors, we weren't allowed to go to the hospital for anything, but he was. So he actually told a story about how he was in the hospital one day, and his doctor was telling him that, I think he had to have some sort of procedure. And they said that, in the event that you need a blood transfusion, we can provide you one. But he was very concerned about it because, that was when the AIDS epidemic was like running, was fast and furious, back in those days. And the doctor quipped back to him. He says, but don't worry, I'll be sure to use it from one of your own people. And that got a whole big laugh from the congregation. So that was probably the most memorable thing I ever remember him.
Patty and I are horrified over here.
Yeah. So
that's actually the speech that I was referring to as well, Justin, when I had made that little comment that he was so excited that AIDS came onto the scene as an excuse to be like, see, you break God's laws. This is what happans. Modern medicine can't fix it, can it?
Yeah. And and I was kind of starting to touch on that a little bit. So like, and it's funny, like to this day, like, it's funny, like, even though it's not true and it's all bullshit, it still like stays with you. It was like, when my wife got diagnosed with breast cancer about a year and a half ago, it was a very scary, it was a very traumatic time. And in the back, in the deep, dark recesses of the back of my mind, some teeny tiny little voice said to me, you see what happens when you go against God,
No.
like, and it's something this is not right. And
I know
it's not true, but it's just something that like crawls out of your brain like a maggot, like a rotting, it's just, they
got to us early.
Screwed up. And when I first left COGs, when I first left, and I struggled to kind of like really kind of forge my own path. Like every time something would go wrong, you would worry, oh, well, I mean, is this God's way of telling me that I have to like kind of get back in line and that sort of thing. And mind you, when all this was happening, I was still living at home. So there came a point, this was about a little over 2004. So I had met a mutual friend when I was active in politics. At this point, I was actually, we were kind of like working with somebody who you would call like a political gadfly. He was like one of those perennial, annoying people in town who would always run against the, establishment and would never win anything. And he would always run people for council seats or seats on the school board. He ran me a couple of times for a seat on the school board. And I met one of the other people. It was a woman that he would also run for things. That's how I met her. We started doing political work together. And I actually kind of I liked her. I liked her a lot. I thought she was very nice. We had nice conversations. I found her very attractive, and she was 28 years older than me. So, when we first, and then we started dating. When we first started dating, I was 23, she was 51, and
I love it.
Yeah, one thing led to another. We spent Labor Day weekend in Lake George. By that point, after we got back, I was kind of like splitting time between being home and being over there. And, the time came where I finally had one last big blow up with my mother. And she told me, all right, look, you're spending half the week here anyway. You might as well just move in. So that was all I needed to hear, because all I wanted to do, whether I thought it was the right thing to do or not, was escape the house, because I couldn't take being around that shit anymore. Yeah. So, I ended up packing up and leaving one unhealthy situation for another unhealthy situation, because, like I said, life doesn't have an instruction manual. And, I had nobody to really like kind of guide my path. And at 20 years old, you're not exactly thinking with this head. So, I'm 20 years old. This like attractive, much older woman likes me. It's like, that's all I care about at that point. So
very understandable.
Yeah. Well, and we just weren't taught to communicate with people either.
Yes.
Navigating the world. It was really hard for me too. I was just shoved into it. Sounds like you were as well.
Yes.
And you had to figure everything out. Wow.
Yeah, and it was a tough period, because we were together on and off for about an 8-year period. We would break up. I would have to move out and look for a place on Craigslist to live. And then we would get back together after a while, and then we'd break up again, and I have to do that shit all over again. At one point, I was working out at a gym. I had become friends with one of the managers of the gym, and he was looking for roommates. So I started doing that, like him and another one of his other friends. Like we actually like started sharing apartments. So I would bounce back and forth to, from living with her to living with roommates, living with her, living with roommates. And the last time we finally like called it quits for good, I called it quits for good because this was a point. So we had broken up, but we were still living together. And I actually started seeing one of my, so she was a Facebook friend, but she was a coworker of my best friend in high school. They worked in the same school. So, and I met her at a Halloween party. We were both cats for Halloween. So she was a cat. I was Peter Chris for Halloween that year. And I'll never forget it, because like that was my first Halloween since I was like a baby before we joined COG, where I got to like dress up as something. Mm-hmm. So like, and I was like really like big into Kiss growing up. So like that was like a huge deal for me, like back then. So, I met her, we talked for a few years on and off, like we knew of each other, like, but, and then after a while, we finally like went out a few times. She, we really hit it off. We liked each other a lot. Or so I thought. Maybe back then I read more into it than there actually was. Probably did. But then, we got to talking, via text message one day, and she said that we couldn't ever be anything more than friends because you're an atheist. So, mind you, via text, not in person, through text message. That was ultimately the straw that broke the camel's back. Okay, you need to get your ass into therapy, because something you're doing is not working. Like you need help, and you have the health insurance. You might as well use it. So that's when I started getting into therapy for the first time, and that was what really kind of helped me break some unhealthy behaviors and attitudes. And it finally helped me permanently break free from a very unhealthy relationship. I don't hang it all on her. I just think, the age gap was so big that we reached a point where we were at different points in our lives where we had different needs from our significant other. We weren't compatible anymore. So, I ended up moving out for good. And then, I ended up meeting my eventual wife, which is a kind of a funny story. If you'll bear with me, Go
for it. And then just to clarify, up to this point, I don't think you've had really a good secular support system, have you?
No.
You probably feel like an absolute weirdo. Like there's something wrong with you because there's a fly in here. All these people around you are making you feel like there's something wrong with you because you don't believe in this deity that they do. And so you're just constantly in that mindset of like questioning what's going on. Is there something wrong with me? But yet something's telling me this isn't right either.
Yeah. The one ally I really had was my best friend from high school. He was the one actually back in 2000. He was the one actually back in 2003 who introduced me to Penn and Teller bullshit, and he was showing me the episode on I love it to this day. The episode they did on Mother Teresa, the Dalai Lama, and who else was it? Gandhi, about how illustrating how religion was all bullshit. The episode on the Bible, how they like debunked the stories of the Bible, So that was really my first foray into atheism. He was the one that kind of like helped me kind of open that portal for me, and made me start questioning, what I was taught from a very young age. Through all the Bible lessons that we had to endure, I don't know if after church services you had your Bible lesson classes, and then you got your certificate at the end of every year, and all the whole congregation laughing at the little kids being scared to walk up on stage because trauma's funny, so, but yeah, but so. What ended up happening was I was kind of like, I was living with roommates. I was kind of like at a low, I don't want to say a low point in my life, but I wasn't at a healthy point in my life. I was just, sitting in front of the TV a lot, drinking a lot. Not really, just work, sleep, not getting out much. And I decided to sign up for a dating site that no longer exists. So I remember it's called evow.com. So basically it was a site that was run by Plenty of Fish for people. I'm dating myself now. It was for people who wanted, serious long-term relationships instead of what POF offered at the time, which was miscellaneous. I was like going through, swipe left, swipe right, how that whole deal went. And, I came across my wife's picture, my eventual wife's picture, and I liked it. So I swiped, I think it was left swipe to like somebody. And one night I'd come down with some kind of like throat infection. I had a high fever and a really bad sore throat. And I'm in the hospital. I drove myself to the emergency room in the middle of the night because I didn't know what the hell this was. So I'm laying there waiting to get examined by an ER doctor. And out of the blue, I get this message on the app from her. So so she's messaging me while I'm like completely miserable in the hospital. And so, I'm just like, so I think I said something like I was an old soul, because I am an old soul. I'm like, when I was 6 years old, I was going on 60. So, I I told, yeah, I'm an old soul. I like, all my tastes predate me and all that. And she was like, oh, I'm going away to France soon, but we should talk soon. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. I get home. They sent me home back in those days with Percocets because like they would just give that out like candy. The good old days, So I came home. I was so sleep deprived because I was in so much pain that I couldn't sleep. So I popped like 2 of them, passed out. I woke up in the middle of the afternoon and there were messages from her. I'm like, oh shit, I got to reply to her real fast or she'll think I'm not interested in her. So, and then I messaged her back and she explained she was going to be in France for, I think, 1 or 2 weeks. But once she gets back, we can go out on a date. And she ended up messaging me from France, like right before she was going to leave. That was my first clue right there. I'm like, okay, she means business. If she took if she took the time and the effort to actually like message me all the way from France, I'm like, okay, all right, yeah, I could see this going somewhere, And we talked on the phone for a while when she got back, and by the time we had our first date, it was like we practically knew each other already.
Oh.
It was April 2013. It was our first date. We hit it off right away. By Labor Day weekend, we were engaged, and by March 2014, we were married. And the rest is history.
Oh no, it's so great.
So,
and I've seen you two interact on Facebook. You're an absolute sweetheart to her. I'm so glad that you found someone that you connected with finally.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have the life I have right now if it wasn't for her.
So was your relationship with your mother kind of faded off, or was that just completely over by the time that you did get married?
So what ended up happening was after my first breakup with my ex, I kind of called her with my tail between my legs saying, hey, it didn't work out. So I moved out and I moved in with my mother temporarily for like, I don't even think it was a month until I found a Craigslist apartment. Like somebody was looking to like rent out one of the rooms of their apartment. So, once I was able to get out, I did as fast as I could. I ran for my life. And then what ended up happening was at that point, PCG had put out Raising the Ruins. And what I ended up doing was I went on to Amazon, and the review is probably still there for all I know. I trashed this book because I knew I didn't even have to read. I knew all the bullshit stories in there that he was telling. So, because we lived it. And, so I gave it a 1-star review and totally trashed it. And, I was coming home one day from work from doing an overnight shift. I was almost home on the bus. And my mother left me this whole angry message that I better remove that review.
Saw it.
Oh.
So the other part of that story is, I don't know if you have any memory of this. Back then, there was this kind of like this message board website called Shadows of WCG, and where we would all kind of like share like COG stories and like we're doing now in a much more primitive fashion. And I told the stories that I'm telling here about my upbringing, my family history, and how I got out of the church and everything. And that was when I had my last interaction with my uncle. So he called me and we had this big blow up over the phone because he said that I was slandering the family. I was airing out their dirty laundry and, you have no business doing that. And, I don't ever want to see you anywhere near this family again because I'll show I have hard copies. I printed out everything you said. And if you ever come anywhere near this family again, I'll show them everything that you said. So, this was maybe about a 10 to 15 minute blow up over the phone that culminated in me telling him to go fuck himself. And that was the last interaction I ever had with him. and he died 8 years after that. So for a long time, it largely also like my family, like they didn't approve of my relationship that I was in. They would say, "Oh, you can come to these things, but you can't bring her." And obviously, I wasn't about to do that.
Right.
I stayed away, and I had no relationship with my mother until my grandmother passed away of stomach cancer in 2015. And then after that, my uncle died in August of that year. And it got to a point where she figured, you know what, life is too short. So she reached out to me. Okay. She started having contact. That was also around the time, I think like it was September or October that year when my wife got pregnant with our son. And, that kind of, I guess lit a fire under her, and she really wanted to, kind of reconnect and all that. I tried being Facebook friends with her and her husband very briefly. That went very poorly. We're not friends on social media, but every now and then she'll check in and ask me how I'm doing, we're civil, but we haven't seen each other since Thanksgiving 2019. So they live about an hour and a half away, down in Toms River. She doesn't drive, and her husband works overnights. So I guess logistically, they can't they're just unable for whatever reason to make it up here, which is sad because, they haven't seen our son since he was 3 years old, and he's 9 now. So there's a lot that he's missing.
Wow. And they're that close. They're living that close.
Yeah. And meanwhile, my dad is always there. Like, he loves, at this point in his life, he's very happy, enjoying retirement. He loves his family. He loves his grandson to death. He's a great grandpa. And
good.
It's it is what it is. I have a very good relationship with my dad. With my mom, it's civil, but I have a relationship with one of my sisters.
Okay.
You can't force people to interact with you, and we're all busy. We all have our lives to live and all that, so I get it. So,
yeah. Well, Patty and I definitely don't go out of our way to contact our parents either. And when we do, because they don't call us, it's a very stale conversation, Stale, how's the fucking weather for the 100th time?
PCG started implementing this rule where if you had kids that weren't part of the church, they weren't allowed to live with you anymore.
Huh? What?
Yeah. And so what ended up happening...
Like children or adult children?
Adult children.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
Well, still, yeah.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. So there came a point where one of my sisters... So my sisters were living together, but they ended up losing their apartment. And she needed a place to stay until she could get an apartment on her own. And so she was staying with my mom until she could find a place like I did. And my uncle ratted her out to the church, to the pastor over it. And the pastor told her, she has to leave. You can't, and she wouldn't throw her out. She wouldn't kick her out. And that's how she ended up getting disfellowshipped.
Wow. I mean,
you can feel the love of Jesus all over it.
Yep.
So much love. I almost get it. It's so much love. The biggest love. Sorry.
But and so my nowadays, my mother and her husband, so they like listen to sermons on the computer. I don't know if it's like some kind of internet Church of God. I don't know what you want to call it.
We should start that one.
Oh shit.
So and they still observe the holy days. Like they'll go someplace for the Feast of Tabernacles every year. They hold on to the ideology. Like they still my the thing that drove me nuts about this the most was I'm going to divert off the path just to tell this story. So after our son was born prematurely, and so he was a preemie. So he was in NICU for about, I want to say, about a little over 40 days. And while he was in NICU, we had the baby shower we were supposed to have for him before he was born. And I made it a point, since I wanted my mother to be part of it. It's like, all right, well, Saturday, it's the Sabbath. So, I'm going to work around it. I'm going to accommodate her. I'm going to we're going to have it on a Sunday instead. And I told my mother, okay, so yeah, just come on Sunday. And to which my mother said, oh, we can't make it. It's Passover. So
fuck.
It was the first and last time I ever tried to. It's like, same shit as always. I'm never doing this again. I should have known better I should have known better from the start. I know better now. Never again. So
well, you're not alone. I mean, so many of us had parents, relatives that didn't come to important things in our lives. They didn't come to my high school graduation. They didn't come to Patty's wedding. I guess it is what it is. At
my wedding, the only one I had on my side was my best friend from high school. Him and his wife. They came to. He was my best man. So our wedding. So our wedding, we got legally married by the county clerk in Hackensack. And then we had, the whole big shebang down in Boca Chica down in the Dominican Republic. So, so they came down to DR for us for our whole big.
Oh, I'm so glad you had him in your life at this point.
Is your wife Dominican?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Anybody. Yeah. So I, like I said earlier, she's a Washington Heights girl. So odds are in Washington, Washington Heights is kind of like little Dominican Republic. It's kind of like how Miami, Florida and Union City, New Jersey are kind of like, little Cuba North and little Cuba South. It's like how China with Chinatown and stuff it's kind of like their little community. So Washington Heights is a very big, has a very big Dominican population.
I have a very good friend that's Dominican, but she says she's from Brooklyn, but I wonder, is that? I wonder.
Oh, that's south. That's south of Manhattan.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That's way downtown. Yeah. So I work in downtown Manhattan, and that's further. Yeah, that's a different borough. Yeah. So you got to pay a whole other toll to cross the bridge on a car to get to Brooklyn. So, but getting back to the topic. So my mom, they still follow all the, they still follow the ideology. They go along with all of it. At this rate, I cannot tell you one way or the other if they do it because they still do it because they still hold fast and they still believe in it, or if at this point it's just sunk cost fallacy. It's like you've devoted practically your entire adult life to this, so maybe it's just more mentally appeasing to just keep doubling down on it than to just look at yourself in the mirror and admit that you fell for a big lie.
Right.
I won't assume that, if she says she still believed in it, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt of that. I have but I often wonder that to myself, and I do think a lot of the people who are from our old Jersey City congregation who are still in GCI, I guess it's called now. If they're still in it, I feel like maybe for the most part they're just still in it because it's like a social club for them at this point, and that's where all their friends are, and I just think because especially when you end up moving from splinter group to splinter group, you have to leave everybody you knew before behind who didn't follow along with you. I do the best I can with the hand I'm dealt. I think that's what we all do.
Yeah.
What else can we do? Yeah.
Exactly. You have like the greatest attitude on it all, honestly.
Yeah, you really do.
Like,
you really do.
And I don't know if this is another moment to plug the value of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
If you blame your well-adjustedness today on that at all, but I think you do.
Blame.
Yeah. I know.
Absolutely. And
give credit to.
And the funny thing is, like, I told my therapist that I was doing this, so she's gonna go back and watch this.
Yay!
Yay, therapist! Woo!
Yeah,
great
there
job.
you go.
Yep. So,
Shout out.
Yeah. So she's gonna get more insight on what makes Justin tick. So
Excellent. I think that that brings me to need to quote your therapist and ask you if there's anything else you want to talk about before we go.
Boy, oh boy. Oh, see, it's happening to me again. I won't think about it. I won't think of it until after we're done. No,
you know what? We just did a follow-up interview. We interviewed Nancy with an I, not that one. And she, about 6 months later, was like, you know what? So much has changed. Can I do another one? So you know what? If you want to come back again and give an update, let us know. I
would love to do that because I'm enjoying this, and yeah, I'll say, now that you've put the bug in my ear, I'll touch on something. My big ultimate career goal in life was to work with my voice, either like doing radio or doing voice acting or voiceover work. And I even thought about like doing things like podcasting or things like that, but I never really had the tools to do it. Or the, so, this is like such a blast for me to be able to have the opportunity to do something like this.
Good. Well, maybe you can collab with us at some point too on specific topics, Justin.
Sure. Yeah. I would love that. That would be great.
Everybody's got a story, and I like yours.
That's why this is a great format, because you're just allowed to kind of just open up and just say whatever comes to mind, and you hit on something, and it's nice. I've enjoyed this very much.
Oh, good. Well, we sure appreciated having you here.
Yes, we appreciate you, Justin.
Sorry, I'm gonna say.
I can't tell you. Like it's an honor because I've been such fans of yours, and it's so much fun to participate in the live shows on Friday nights.
That's so fun! Yay!
With drink in hand, and watching the old telecasts and mocking them and laughing at them and playing with fake boobies and and the holy mighty majesty on the kazoo. That was the icing on the cake.
Oh, good.
If you enjoyed this show and you appreciate what the sisters do here, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, or drop some dollars if you're feeling feisty. Thank you. Like and subscribe. Yay, Justin!